A Russian spy ship just fired military-grade lasers at British pilots in UK waters. London has issued a direct warning to Moscow, and what happens next could decide the future of underwater warfare. This isn't a drill. This is the opening move of a hidden conflict unfolding beneath the waves. A Russian spy ship fires lasers at British pilots over UK waters. London's answer: a direct warning to Moscow, and a promise that the next move will be military. This is the story of the Yantar, the most provocative encounter in years between British and Russian forces, and why a single beam of light in the North Atlantic may be the opening move in something much bigger. Let's get into it. The incident. November 18, 2024, north of Scotland. An RAF Poseidon P-8 maritime patrol aircraft cuts across the frozen Atlantic sky, its sensors locked onto a lone vessel below. The crew has been on this track for hours. Standard mission, routine monitoring. Then the cockpit erupts in blinding light. This isn't sunlight. This isn't a reflection. It is a deliberate, concentrated beam, fired straight at the aircraft from the ship beneath them. The pilots turn away as radio chatter explodes. The laser sweeps again, probing, searching for the cockpit windows like it's trying to reach inside. This is no accident. This is a signal. Within 48 hours, the UK Defense Secretary is standing before cameras at Downing Street. His tone is firm, calm, unmistakably pointed. We see you. We know what you're doing. And if the Yantar travels south this week, we are ready. What is the Yantar? The ship at the center of all this is the Yantar, officially an oceanographic research vessel. Unofficially, one of Russia's most advanced intelligence-gathering platforms, built to map, monitor, and, if ordered, sabotage the undersea networks that hold the modern world together. And now, for the first time, it's used lasers to blind British military pilots in UK territorial waters. So let's break down what happened, who's involved, and why Britain is threatening military action over a ship that supposedly just studies the ocean floor. Capabilities and mission. The Yantar entered service in 2015, built at the Yantar shipyard in Kaliningrad. From the outside, it seems innocuous. A white-hulled 108-meter ship fitted with cranes, winches, and bays for launching submersibles. But the Yantar doesn't answer to any civilian agency. It operates under Russia's main directorate for deep-sea research, GUJI. And GUJI is not a group of oceanographers. As Defense Secretary John Healey put it, GUJI was designed to undertake surveillance in peacetime and sabotage in conflict. The ship's hardware tells the same story. It carries 2 deep-diving submersibles, AS-37 and AS-39, each capable of descending more than 6,000 meters, deep enough to access almost any cable or pipeline on Earth. It also houses ROVs, high-end sonar, and mapping systems that can chart the seabed in extraordinary detail. Western intelligence has monitored the Yantar for years as it lingered around strategic locations. Fiber optic cables, power conduits, gas pipelines, the arteries through which 95% of the world's internet traffic and trillions in financial transactions flow. The stakes. If those cables go down, the consequences are not hypothetical. In 2022, crucial undersea cables linking the Shetland Islands to mainland Scotland were damaged under suspicious circumstances. Norway reported similar events near Svalbard. In October 2023, a subsea gas pipeline and telecom cable between Finland and Estonia were cut, almost certainly sabotage. The Yantar has been seen near every one of these incidents. So when it appeared in UK waters again this month, the Royal Navy didn't shrug. They didn't treat it as a research vessel. They treated it as a threat, Britain's vulnerability. To understand why this matters, you need to grasp what's really at risk. There are more than 570 undersea cables spanning the planet. They carry everything: Netflix, international banking, corporate networks, global stock markets, military communications. All of it depends on cables lying silently on the ocean floor, and they're far easier to cut than most people think. Many sit in shallow waters, less than 1,000 meters deep. A submersible with the right tools could sever one in minutes. Hit the wrong cables at the right time, and entire nations could go dark. And Britain is especially exposed. As an island, The UK relies on around 60 cables connecting it to Europe, the US, and beyond. Cut a handful and chaos follows. That's why the Yantar's presence isn't just concerning. It's alarming. The laser attack. The exact date remains classified, but the strike occurred within the past month. Here's what is known. The Yantar entered UK territorial waters north of Scotland for the second time this year. It was moving slowly, with its AIS either disabled or spoofing false coordinates. The Royal Navy responded immediately. HMS Somerset, a Type 23 frigate, was dispatched to shadow the vessel. Above, an RAF Poseidon P-8 launched from RAF Lossiemouth, carrying advanced radar, infrared sensors, and high-res cameras to document every movement. Its mission was simple: watch, record, report, until the lasers fired. Healy called it deeply dangerous. Military lasers used to dazzle pilots are a growing feature of gray zone warfare, confrontation that stays just below open aggression. But this time, the line was crossed. Shadowing the Yantar. How do you track a ship like this? 1. Detection. Coastal radar, satellites, and underwater listening systems spot the vessel as it nears British waters. 2. Surface shadowing. A Royal Navy frigate pulls alongside, often within a few hundred meters, recording speed, heading, course, maneuver patterns, all streamed live to UK Strategic Command. 3. Aerial surveillance. The P-8 Poseidon monitors from above using radar, infrared, high-resolution optics, infrared sensors, sonobuoys to detect submersibles. All of this unfolds in international waters, where Russia is legally allowed to operate. The UK can monitor, but cannot intervene unless a hostile act is committed. And the laser attack is that hostile act. Russia's response. Predictably, the Russian embassy in London dismissed Healy's warning as provocative and simply laughable. Their statement insisted, "Russia is not interested in British underwater communications. Our actions do not touch the interests of the UK and are not aimed at undermining its security." They pushed further, accusing Britain of Russophobic hysteria, following a militaristic course, creating preconditions for new dangerous situations. It's the same familiar script: deny, deflect, and accuse the West of escalation. But Western intelligence analysts aren't fooled. The Yantar's history tells a very different story. Marine traffic ship tracking data shows the Yantar has spent the past year roaming the North Sea, the Baltic, and waters around the British Isles. In November, it was escorted out of Dutch territorial waters after being spotted near offshore infrastructure. Before that, it lingered near UK, Norway undersea cables, North Sea gas pipelines, fiber optic lines linking Scotland and Iceland. Each time, Moscow claimed it was carrying out oceanographic research. Each time, NATO shadowed it until it left. But the laser attack changes everything. This wasn't passive surveillance. It was active interference with British military operations, a test to see how far Russia can push before the West responds with force. Where is the Yantar now? At this moment, no one knows for sure. Marine traffic shows the Yantar stopped broadcasting its position on November 2nd, last seen in the Baltic Sea north of Latvia. Since then, the ship has gone dark. But in recent days, flight tracking data has shown RAF Poseidon P-8 patrol patterns circling off the Scottish coast. A strong hint that British forces still have a lock on the vessel. If the Yantar moves south toward more sensitive zones, especially the dense undersea cable routes linking the UK to continental Europe, London has made its position clear. It will respond. What that response looks like remains the big question. Possible British responses. Military analysts outline several options. 1. Closer shadowing. Under updated rules of engagement, Royal Navy frigates could close to within 100 meters of the Yantar, close enough to make launching submersibles nearly impossible. At that distance, sonar instantly detects underwater activity. The crew can visually monitor every deck movement. Any attempt at cable interference becomes highly risky. 2. Electronic countermeasures. The UK could deploy electronic warfare systems to jam the Yantar's satellite communications, disrupt its navigation and GPS, interfere with submersible control links. This would severely limit the ship's ability to coordinate with Moscow or conduct seabed operations effectively. 3. Direct interception. If the Yantar is caught deploying underwater vehicles near critical infrastructure, the Royal Navy could deploy its own assets, divers, ROVs, or autonomous systems to block access, track devices, or even recover Russian hardware. 4. Use of force, last resort. If caught in the act of sabotage, the UK could legally authorize force to disable the ship. That could include crippling propulsion, jamming command systems, or, in extreme scenarios, boarding the vessel. But let's be realistic. A senior defense official has already said it would be inconceivable for British vessels to open fire unless the Yantar did something very, very aggressive. And they're right. Sinking a Russian ship in peacetime, even with clear evidence, would be an act of war. It would give Moscow the excuse it wants to escalate, whether through cyber attacks, energy coercion, or military retaliation elsewhere. But that doesn't mean Britain has no options. There are many tools short of firing a shot that can effectively neutralize the Yantar's mission. Non-kinetic countermeasures. Aggressive shadowing. If a Royal Navy frigate sits 100 meters off your stern, sonar blasting, cameras recording, it becomes nearly impossible to deploy submersibles undetected. Electronic warfare. Jamming satellite uplinks, scrambling GPS, or interfering with the ship's onboard systems can blind and isolate the vessel, forcing it to retreat. Diplomatic pressure. If the UK proves the Yantar attempted sabotage, it could trigger severe sanctions, expulsion of Russian diplomats, NATO-backed limits on Russian naval activity in European waters. Military power isn't always measured in torpedoes. Sometimes the most effective response is the one just under the threshold of war, the kind that blocks the enemy's mission without giving them a reason to fire back. A pattern of escalation. This incident doesn't stand alone. It is part of a growing pattern of Russian aggression that has intensified since the invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Over the last 2 years, NATO has recorded hundreds of Russian airspace incursions. Russian submarines have been detected near Atlantic undersea cables. Intelligence ships like the Yantar have been spotted near critical infrastructure across Europe. In response, NATO has quietly increased its undersea surveillance. More patrols, expanded sonar networks, and new rapid response units to protect cables and pipelines. Britain has taken a lead here, strengthening cooperation with Norway and Denmark, widening submarine patrol routes, and investing in advanced detection technologies targeting Russian deep-sea systems. The deeper strategic concern, deterrence. Russia knows it cannot defeat NATO in a conventional fight. Its forces are stretched thin in Ukraine, its economy strained, its hardware aging. But undersea infrastructure? That's a weak point. A few precisely timed explosions on key cables could disrupt global markets, cripple communications, plunge Europe into digital chaos. And the brilliance, from Moscow's perspective, is deniability. Cut a cable in the mid-Atlantic and by the time repair teams arrive, the evidence is long gone. Was it Russia? An accident? A third party? Good luck proving anything. That's why Britain's response to the Yantar matters so much. It's not just about one ship. It's about the message. If you threaten the cables, there will be consequences. A NATO-wide effort. Britain is not standing alone. NATO coordination is increasing. Norway, Denmark, and the Netherlands are expanding surveillance. Discussions are underway for a dedicated NATO task force to protect undersea infrastructure. For decades, cables were overlooked. Now they're recognized as a core vulnerability. And the question is whether the defenses being built will be enough. Because Russia isn't the only danger. China has its own deep-sea fleet. Non-state actors could target infrastructure. Accidents already cause frequent damage. Protecting hundreds of thousands of kilometers of cable requires constant, coordinated, multinational vigilance. The new face of conflict. For the crew aboard HMS Portland, it's just another day at sea. Another Russian vessel to shadow, another potential flashpoint to manage. But for leaders and strategists in London, this is bigger. It is a test of deterrence, a test of how Britain defends its interests in an era where battles are fought not with missiles, but with lasers, fiber optic cables, and silent submersibles. The rules are murky, and the provocations unfold just below the threshold of open war. Defense Secretary Healey ended his press conference with a stark warning. Our world is changing. It is less predictable. It is more dangerous. He's right, and the waters off Scotland are only one front in a much larger contest. A contest fought in silence, shadows, and cold depths. This is the new shape of conflict. Not armies clashing on open fields, but intelligence ships stalking each other in freezing seas. Not declarations of war, but lasers slicing across the cockpit of an aircraft. Not tanks crossing borders, but submersibles drifting through the dark, hunting cables in the deep. It is warfare by inches, provocation met with restraint, escalation met with counter-escalation, with stakes far higher than most people ever realize. And the uncomfortable truth? We're almost certainly going to see more of it. The final question. So here's the question. If you were in command that day, and the Yantar had just fired lasers at your aircraft, would you have closed the distance and forced a confrontation? Or would you have held your position, keeping your powder dry for the moment it truly matters? Would you risk escalation to send a message? Or would you wait, record everything, and let politicians weigh the consequences? There's no easy call. There's no perfect answer, because that is the reality of modern naval operations. Split-second decisions carrying international consequences. Drop your answer in the comments. I genuinely want to know where you stand. And if you want to support the channel and help us bring more real maritime stories to the surface, consider joining the fleet. You'll get loyalty badges, priority replies, and you'll help keep these stories alive. Just head to the channel page and hit that join button. Fair winds, sailors, and remember, sometimes the most dangerous battles are the ones that never make the headlines. I'll see you in the next one.